Hi, my name is Larry Liss, and during the Vietnam conflict, I was, amongst other things, one of my missions was to fly helicopters in Vietnam, and I graduated from flight school in October of 1966 and went right to Vietnam for 14 months. And I participated in a mission that's been recognized as a fairly heroic mission called the Cau Song Be Rescue Mission. And on a particular Sunday in May of 1967, I was flying along with a guy by the name of Tom Baca in a UH-1 helicopter, unarmed, VIP helicopter, carrying a chaplain, Catholic chaplain, to the Special Forces camp at Cau Song Be, which was about 10 miles just southeast of the Cambodian border. It was a village of about 500 people with 200 combatants and 11 Special Forces troops. When we landed with the chaplain, we were told by the camp commander that one of his units of 100 civilian irregular defense group, which we call Allied Forces, and 3 Special Forces sergeants were being overrun about 4 miles west of the camp, and asked us if we would go and help. And we initially realized that we had no guns on our aircraft. It was a VIP helicopter, and it was against regulations to fly a VIP helicopter into a combat situation. So we waited about 10 seconds and decided to go anyway, because there was no support and we were way up in the highlands anyway. So we flew the first sortie, and going in we realized that these 100 troops were up against about 600 North Vietnamese regulars of the 273rd, it's called, and we had to use our rotor blades to cut down the bamboo. So obviously both of us were shook up, didn't know what this Bell helicopter could take, but we couldn't see leaving them there, and we figured we'd give it a shot. We'd either mess the helicopter up real badly, or we'd crash and be stuck with them and hope that somebody would come, or we'd be able to get out. And we made the first run, chopped down the bamboo with the blades. You could feel the blades starting to be destroyed, but we pulled out about 10 or 12 of their troops. While this was happening, I mean, people on the helicopter were getting shot in the cargo bay. We flew back, and at that point in time, the camp commander asked us, basically said, would you go back? We got to keep on saving these people. And both of us, Bach and I, said, okay, we'll do it. And we went back for a second time. On the second time in, another helicopter came in, flown by a guy named Jack Swickert, a warrant officer, and Kenneth Dolan, another warrant officer, who supposedly had guns, which we thought would help us, except their guns jammed. So there was 2 helicopters flying in, cutting bamboo like buzzsaws, and pulling out more and more people. And as we did that, the perimeter kept shrinking. More and more the perimeter would shrink down. And the truth is, these South Vietnamese troops were exceptional. By then, 2 of the sergeants had died. 1 was gravely wounded, and we had probably pulled out about 40 or 50 people by that time. We made 3 more runs for a total of 5, and on the last run, the North Vietnamese regulars were about 50 feet from the helicopter. I was jumping in and out of the helicopter to throw people on board, and we pulled out the last remaining 18 and were able to actually get off the ground. And we got out of there, we landed at Cau Song Be, dropped the rest of the people off. We were low on fuel, our red light was on. We made it back to our base camp, which was about 30 minutes away, and shut the helicopter down. And at about 9:30 that night, the commander of our flight detachment came charging into my where I lived, yelling and screaming at me that he was going to put me up on charges because I had flown an unarmed helicopter against regulations into a combat zone. And at that time, I guess I smiled at him, like thinking it was kind of silly, but that at the time that might have been the Army. So anyway, the general, commanding general, a guy named Fred Way, and this commander negotiated a settlement. So rather than getting brought up in charges, Bach and I were awarded, and Swickert were awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. And when the general gave me the award at a ceremony, he just shook my hand and he said, just keep saving people, don't worry about whether a helicopter is a VIP helicopter or not, and you guys deserved a lot more, and thank you for your efforts. And that was the end of that mission. I forgot about that mission totally. 30, 40 years later, And I guess by this story you'll discover that this mission took on a life of its own. People started talking about it because now there are blogs. People started connecting. And then Windfall Films, the Smithsonian, and National Geographic, along with the BBC, produced 4 helicopter war films, one called Vietnam Firefight, which is going to show in the States in Veterans Day in November. And it's just a 1-hour special featuring this particular mission, which they said was one of the most heroic missions they had ever researched. I think there was a lot more heroic missions, of course, than my particular mission, but that's what they said. I don't think there's much else to say. I think this article will probably say everything that needs to be said. I'm glad to be alive, and I'm actually, if you could call it politicking, I'm actually politicking to make sure that the Special Forces guys, of which there were 5 of them, get recognition, because they never did. Because at that time, Special Forces was kind of top secret, and there wasn't much paperwork flying around. So there are 5 Special Forces guys that are now being recognized. We're pushing paperwork for them. And then there are 5 of us, helicopter pilots and crew, that are being recommended for upgrades also. And my main interest is to make sure that there's a review, and that at that point in time the awards branch will make a decision. And whatever the decision is, that's what the decision is.